Hello, everyone, and welcome to our hands-on. My name is Rose Terry, and I am the marketing manager and a senior innovation specialist here at the Innovation Cluster. And before we get into the workshop, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a rundown about what today is going to look like. So, I'm just sharing my screen with you right now. This is who this workshop is brought to you by today. So you will see here on the slide, we have the Innovation Cluster, Peterborough and the Kawarthas Economic Development, Downtown Peterborough, the DBIA, Kawartha Lakes Economic Development, the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, as well as Community Futures Peterborough. And if you're not aware of what the Innovation Cluster does, we are actually a not-for-profit organization that specifically works with startups in innovation and technology. And all of our workshops are open to the public. So even if you're not a client of ours, these workshops, as you know, are open for everyone. So please just check in with us on all of our social media channels or subscribe to our mailing list if you would like to receive our workshops directly. So today we are very lucky actually because one of our clients, his name is Graeme Barrie, and he specializes in cybersecurity. So we have Graeme on with us today, and he's going to be talking about current threats, selecting your workforce, security and privacy on video conference calls, and business continuity planning. So please give a warm welcome to Graeme Barrie.
Hello, everybody. This is weird being in front of a screen and not actually physically sitting in front of a group of people and having some interaction. So bear with me. I like to wave my hands a lot, and we're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry. I'll swear, you'll swear. It's all good. Hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. If I can get a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, good. So today's topic, working from home and how to secure yourself and your workforce during these unprecedented times. So a quick agenda, the types of COVID-related cyber attacks that are going on right now. As a business owner, how can I respond? As an employee, how I can respond? And the elephant in the room, Zoom, and we'll follow it up with Q&A. So the last month has been crazy in terms of various cyber attacks with COVID-related information. So they're taking the form of phishing, SMShing. SMShing is text messages, malicious apps, malicious websites, and DDoS and disinformation. So just to recap, the types of different attacks that are going on right now with COVID-19 themes, phishing and smishing. Like I said, smishing is text messages, malicious apps, malicious websites, and DDoS and disinformation. So the phishing emails, like I said, the cyber criminals like to take advantage of chaos or turmoil, and there's no better time than right now with a global pandemic. So they're taking advantage of everybody wanting to seek information. So they're sending out emails by the hundreds of thousands. Since the end of March, researchers have seen an uptake in the number of phishing emails being sent daily by an increase of 670%. So that's millions of messages being blasted around the world. And what they're trying to do is pull on your heartstrings and create that sense of urgency and trick you into clicking. So we've seen some from government organizations or agencies. One in particular sneaky one was in the US with mimicking a health provider and saying that your health benefits have increased because of the pandemic. So click here to see your increase in charges. So it was causing people to click on these malicious messages, which then download malware to your computer, which then lead to ransomware attacks or other malicious activities. Same with the SMShing. We've seen some that are, like you can see on the slide, PC optimum points. Click here to get 2,000. I don't know what number that is, but these are things that tip you off that they're fake messages when you've got errors like that. Another one was Red Cross providing N95 masks to every household. Click here. Does the same thing. It's going to download malware to your mobile device, and now with workers working from home and using devices more, it could gain entry to your organization's network or lock your phone entirely and hold it for ransom. Malicious websites, same thing. Scammers are creating websites and having like infection maps where you click on the map to zoom into your respective area, and then it'll launch an attack on your systems. There's misinformation websites which are being used for political interference. And the third type is e-commerce, where people are publishing basically stores saying buy these vitamins or drugs to protect yourself against COVID. And they're making tens of thousands of dollars a day with people thinking that they're getting a cure to the disease. Domain registrars, they saw at the end of March, over a 72-hour period, there was over 70,000 domains registered for these activities. And there's a worldwide organization trying to crack down and shut these sites down to protect the public. So malicious mobile apps, these, we've seen an uptick in these as well, especially if you're using Android. There's been some Android apps in particular, and they trick you into installing the app so you can scan and see where infection rates are in your geographic area, like your neighborhood, what have you. But in reality, what you're doing is giving the app access to your phone, and they can then lock your device and demand a ransom. And for personal use, that may not be a big thing. You lose your contacts, your phone, whatever. But if they're being used for business use, then it poses a big issue. So a lot of people were paying the ransom. I think the Google Play Store has cracked down on some of these, but if you are using unlocked devices or jailbroken or sideloading, then you're still at risk. So you may be asking, well, all this stuff happened before the pandemic, so what's really changed? Ransomware was already a threat, but what's changed is our new way of work. So previous, we had all of our computers in our corporate network, in our office, behind a firewall with one connection to the internet. And if we had SaaS services like Office 365, SharePoint, Salesforce, what have you, that's what's signified with the two little servers in the cloud there. We only had one point of contact, and everything was hunky-dory. We could protect that one gateway, and we felt good. Unfortunately, with the new way of work and employees working from home, now we've got several points of attack instead of just that one at our place of business. So the criminals are taking advantage of that. They're taking advantage of the fact that employees are now thrust into this new way of work, and they're not used to it. Home networks typically don't have the security as a corporate network, so they're taking advantage of that as well. There's tools to scan and look for unpatched firewalls that are typically used for home use. So it poses a real issue on the security side to manage all these endpoints. And the thing is, as a business owner, you're still responsible for the privacy of your data. You're still a custodian of your data, even in times like this. So it's even more critical to consider cybersecurity. So as a business owner, how can I respond? As I said, you have increased responsibilities now, and you need to set clear expectations of how the organization is going to manage that risk. And it's important that any messages of cybersecurity come from the top, and a good example set. This morning I was, flipping through my Twitter feed, and all I saw were messages about the Prime Minister not leading by example and telling us all to stay home at Easter, and he went off to his cottage. That's the kind of example we need to set as business leaders, to say we're taking security seriously, and our staff will follow our lead. So as a business owner, I've got 6 recommendations. So understand the threats to your organization. You should work with your IT providers or cybersecurity partners to identify what the likely attack vectors are with the employees working from home, and then prioritize the protection of your most sensitive information and business critical applications. As I said, these are unprecedented times. We're adjusting to this new way of work, and we need to adapt not only our processes, but we need to adapt how we are, protecting our information, our applications, our intellectual property, whatever it may be. So you need to, take a step back and look at it and say, well, how am I going to protect this information now that it's being spread across not just one site now, it's spread across numerous sites as where my employees are working. Provide clear guidance and encourage communication. The biggest thing is maintain a level of communication so staff just aren't out working in isolation, and ensure that you have policies for working from home so staff know what they should and shouldn't do in taking steps to protect the information they're using and protect their own environment, their home. And that also includes, being open to share their concerns of suspicious activity with you, the business owner, or your IT provider, if you're using a provider, and keep that flow of information open, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem. It may pose to be a big threat. So provide the right security capabilities, and the saying, the right tool for the job, that's very fitting right now. You should make sure that all corporately owned devices are equipped with the essential security capabilities, and you're extending the security of your corporate network out. And that includes, updating your endpoint protection on laptops and mobile devices, so anti-malware, VPN software, and device encryption. Enable and enforce multi-factor authentication where you can. And if you have the capability, then enforce URL filtering. So what that does is a lot of the cyber criminals are using set domain URLs. So by having a whitelisting service, they update them throughout the day as they start seeing malicious activity. So then that can be pushed out to your workforce. And then if they do accidentally click on a link that's going to take them to one of these malicious sites, the filtering will block them. And make sure auto updates are turned on, both for your operating systems and all your applications, especially Zoom. They're pushing out updates every couple days. So that's critical. That's probably one of the best and easiest ways to stop a lot of malicious activity is by turning on auto updates. Provide awareness training. You know, the best way to identify what the threats are is to learn about them. So the best way is to make available awareness training for your employees. Shameless plug, Netmechanics has one for free right now. And it's relevant and it's timely. You can stay on top of what the risks are. They're changing frequently right now because of the flow of information that's being broadcasted. So the cyber criminals are staying one step ahead and utilizing that information. So it's best to make sure you as an employer and all your employees have been kept up to speed as well to be able to identify the risks and threats. Backups are more important than ever. If you have staff working from home or remote sites, you have to ensure that the data they're working on is being backed up. If you're doing what a lot of organizations have done during this is move to Google Drive or Office 365 with OneDrive, there are tools available to back that data up, and that's essential because now if an endpoint or a user does succumb to a malicious link and does launch a ransomware attack on your organization, the software, the ransomware will encrypt your cloud storage. So don't look as cloud storage as a backup. It's just an interim storage for your data. So you have to ensure that your Google Drive, your OneDrive, all of those storage tools are being backed up. It's critical more than ever. And update your backup procedures accordingly. If you had procedures for in the office, then you need to extend them out to the remote sites and look at where your data is and make sure you're backing that up and update your procedures. Update your cyber plan. As I've been talking throughout this, your landscape, your threat landscape has changed. So you need to update your cyber plan and how these new risks to your organization. Oh, I see I have a typo there. Risks to your organization and how you're going to manage them. So, the legislation or privacy legislation is still in full effect. It doesn't matter that we're under a pandemic and states of emergency. We have to ensure that we are still doing everything within our power to protect our client information, any private information. So you need to update your cyber plan and your response plans to adapt to that. So the next phase now as an employer, we've rolled this out. What can we do as an employee? How do we respond to this? So like I said, our employees must be empowered to take preventative measures. They need to take it on themselves. If they're using their own personal equipment, then they need to take it on themselves to make sure they're working securely. So maintain good password hygiene. Consider complex passwords. Consider using a password manager. A lot of times they will generate strong passwords for you. and it'll store them in a secure encrypted database. So you only have one password to remember to be able to access them. And do not use personal accounts for your work and work for personal, vice versa. And don't share passwords between the two. Don't take your personal passwords and use them for work accounts or vice versa. And remember, with passwords, longer is stronger. There's the capability right now, every 8-character password can be cracked in 2.5 hours. So just remember, longer is stronger. And the strongest of all is a password phrase. So if it's a lyric of a song, that's going to be next to impossible to crack. So longer is stronger, and maintain your good password hygiene. Turn on automatic updates. Like I said previously, it's the best way to protect yourself. So make sure your operating system, the applications you're using are all set for auto update. And secure your Wi-Fi access point. The home network has now become an extension of your corporate network, and you need to ensure that it's properly secured. So make sure you have a unique password. Don't use the default password that it came with, and use WPA2 encryption for your wireless. And if possible, it's best to turn on your guest network and have all your devices in the house connect to the guest network and use the primary network for your work purpose. And also ensure your router has the latest security updates applied. There have been some attacks recently on consumer firewalls and routers. So attackers are going after them, and they're looking for these unpatched devices. So make sure you apply the latest patches if available. And if it is an older device, then it may be a good opportunity to upgrade it, so you are able to get security updates. And be wary of the scams. Like I said, with the awareness training, it's the best way to keep apprised of what the threats are on an ongoing basis. We're seeing the uptick in the phishing scams, the SMS attacks, but financial fraud is also a big thing, where it's easier with employees being remote and there being not constant communication with coworkers. So criminals are sending notices to employees at home and saying, this bill needs to be paid, you have an outstanding balance, please wire the money to this new account. And you should implement a process of a secondary approval. So, if employees are handling the transferring of funds, then they need to pick up the phone and call that vendor and verify that they are in fact requesting these funds, they have a new account, and then go from there. So that's just another procedure you need to put in place and educate employees on that scam. Don't mix personal and work. Try not to use your work device as a play device and a personal device as a work device if possible. And if you wouldn't use an app or service in the office, try not to install it on your work device at home now, thinking that no one's watching you and you can, play games and what have you. It's just another way to open up an entry point for attackers, and then ultimately get into your corporate data. And don't work near smart speakers, Google Home, Amazon Alexa, these type devices. They are easily hacked and used as an eavesdropping device. So if you have one nearby and you're conducting calls of confidential or personal nature, they could be recording. So it's best to not work near them or shut them down if you are having to work near them. It's just another layer of protection with confidential information. And like I've said previously, we still have to protect our confidential information. Legislation's still in force, so we have to do everything we can to protect personal and confidential information. If you do have to print, just double check and see what your policies and procedures are in a case like this to be able to print. And if you have clean desk policies at work, you should have them at home. Don't leave work documents lying around for prying eyes, even though they may be family. It's still considered confidential and private information. So check and see what your organization's doing about printing documents at home. And if you are printing at home, what's the policy on the destruction of those documents? So just things to follow up with. And the elephant in the room, Zoom. We're all on Zoom. There's been a lot of news recently with Zoom and the numerous security issues. Zoom really isn't unlike many other applications that saw immense growth in a short period of time. We saw it with Slack, with Twitch. They all have security issues. And Zoom, at the end of December 2019, they had 10 million users. At the end of March, they had over 200 million. Businesses around the world have jumped on it, mainly because it was free and it was easy for employees to communicate. The thing is, with free applications, they're never free. You're the product. It turned out they were harvesting user data and selling it to Facebook. They've been routing calls through China. They have ties with China, where calls could be intercepted. When you record meetings and you record to or store it in the Zoom cloud, it is being stored in China. That's being updated in the next release, though, apparently. So if you're using Zoom, make sure you're updating it. Like I said, updating applications automatically. Make sure Zoom is turned on as one of those. They're pushing out updates. Just in the last week, they've made a lot of changes to tighten security. And in their credit, they've responded. They've retained security consultants, and they're working hard to gain back the public's trust. So fair play to them for that. There are steps you can take to tighten if you are having to use Zoom. Make sure you're updating the application, like I said. Keep the waiting rooms enabled. In previous releases, that wasn't enabled by default. Now it is, but you still have the opportunity to turn it off. Keep that turned on, so when you are hosting a meeting, that your attendees wait in the waiting room. Then you can use that as a vetting tool and allow the attendees in once you know they are who they are. So as an attendee, make sure you're using your real name. If you use a nickname or something, then the host may not recognize it and not let you in if they're vetting. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Once all the attendees are in the call, then lock the meeting. That'll cut back on Zoom bombing that was occurring. And also, if attendees don't need to share screens, make sure you turn that off as well, so only the host can share screen. And also, you can disable the collaboration, such as screen markup and whiteboarding. And if at all possible, don't conduct calls containing confidential or personal information on Zoom. It's not end-to-end encrypted, so it still can be intercepted, and the information being transmitted can be captured. So if you do require the need for secure communications, WebEx and Microsoft Teams do have end-to-end, and I got an email this morning from a colleague saying WebEx has reduced their pricing to get more people on their end-to-end encrypted service. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you do need to have calls that will contain personal or confidential information, then look to those apps. You'll have to pay for them, but you know, if you're broadcasting that type of information, then paying for it shouldn't be a concern. And that's all I've got. It was a lot to throw out in a short period of time. Thank you everybody for attending. Like I mentioned, we've put up we're offering awareness training for free. So here's the link here. If you go to netmechanics.ca/working from home, you can register. There's no limit on how many employees you can have on it. Right now we've got, I think, 10 videos that take a look at working from home and the various threats based on previous attacks. So it gives your employees an idea of what to look for. They're fun, they're engaging, they're animated. And I'll be posting tips and tricks on that site as well on a regular basis. So it'll help everybody keep up to speed on what's going on. And with that, I guess we'll go to questions.
Thanks, Graeme. That was so awesome. We really appreciate all of your insight on this subject. So now how we're going to do this is my lovely colleague, Alana, is going to join in. And she is our operations and events manager. And we are going to open up the chat box so that you guys are able to send in questions, and she will moderate the questions. And she'll also be posting a wonderful survey for everyone to fill out after this so that you can let us know if you like this workshop, and also what you would be looking for in the future in terms of workshops so that we can plan to help you guys even better. I'll pass it to Alana now.
Thanks, Rose. So like Rose said, there will be a survey going out. I'll put it in the chat box so you guys can click through, or it also is going to be emailed you around 1:30. If you guys just want to put any questions you have for Graeme in the chat box, feel free to do so now. Something else I wanted to let everybody know about is on Thursday at 12 o'clock, we are holding a business continuity workshop. So Charlena, who's a board member of the Community Futures Peterborough organization, she is going to go through policies and procedures to have in place for your business in circumstances such as COVID-19. But the link is on all of our social media, so you guys can find it there. But I'm just going to jump into questions. So Marilyn is asking, tell us more about lyrics being strong passwords.
Right. I use that example because it's easy for everyone to remember. Generally, how password cracking works is attackers use software that basically run through dictionary words. Right now, I think they can run through 10 billion words a second. But they stumble on spaces. So if you have a passphrase with spaces, then it trips up the software that's used to crack. So that's why it's easy for people to remember their favorite song lyric. So pick your favorite song and grab a lyric out of it. I'm totally drawing a blank what my favorite lyric would be. But that's the key is, you know, you can think of something else like, you know, I look out my window right now and my backyard's a mess. So there's a passphrase, my backyard's a mess. Something like that. We need to get away from the idea of easy for computers and hard for people to be easy for people and hard for computers. And by having a complex password like that, we may think it's easy, and it is for us to remember, but it's hard for computers to crack. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, so the next one is, what are your thoughts on using a VPN for a personal device? Is it necessary?
Personally, I use a VPN all the time. I use it for work. I use it for personal. I'm just untrusting. It doesn't matter where I am or what network I'm on. I use it as much as possible. And now they've gotten so cheap. There really is no reason not to use a VPN. Plus, you can stream US Netflix through it.
Okay, so the next is, which is the most reliable tool for generating a password?
There's several out there. Right now, I'm using a product called 1Password. They're based out of Toronto. They're a really good group of people. It's easy to use, and it actually has the functionality. If you try to reuse a password, it alerts you and says, well, you've used that password already. Try something else. So I like it, and it's Canadian. So go Canada.
Okay, Connie is asking, for the novices, can you give a VPN 101?
Yeah, so VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. And what that does is it basically encrypts your traffic so no one can see it. So if you're communicating, let's say back to your office, if you're on the public internet, then that traffic can be seen. VPN basically creates a tunnel from point to point and encrypts it so no one can peek in. I guess that's the simplest non-technical, without having a whiteboard for me to draw it like I would normally do. But that essentially is what it's doing, is it's creating your own private tunnel for your traffic. Okay. So if you look at it and say, let's say the 401, and rather than, you're driving down the 401 and you can see everybody in the lanes beside you, you're in your own encapsulated tunnel and no one can see you. That would be a good way to put it. Okay.
For Alexis, this is recorded, so you will get a link to this video later on this week. The next question is from Michael. Any recommendations on a decent VPN, as there's so many to choose from?
Yeah, there are. Right now I'm using a product called CyberGhost. It's been really reliable, and it's affordable. You can get a 3-year plan, I think, for 10 devices for just a couple bucks a month. So it seems to be pretty robust. You can choose which country you're going through, if you're wanting to stream foreign Netflix. But yeah, there's a ton out there. As I said, I use CyberGhost. If you are looking at it, then you can look at some reviews, or talk to your IT provider. They may have a recommendation of one they use, and they may have a deal that they can offer you.
Okay, the next one is from Michelle. When you say have spaces in your password, do you mean an actual space or a character like an underscore?
An actual space. An underscore is just viewed as a character. So the password crackers just throw that into the mix. They're expecting underscores and dashes. So the actual space bar.
Okay. The next one is from Kim. An employer is concerned about staff using Zoom Meet for coffee breaks. If you take all of your precautions on the slide, in your presentation what issues are still present?
Really, if it's just for coffee breaks and there's no confidential information, if you take the precautions that I've put forward to restrict like Zoom bombing or any external access, the other key is don't publicly share the meeting ID and a password. I don't see any security issues really. If you're not sharing any confidential or private information and it's just a get together, I don't see any issues.
Okay. If anybody else has questions, you can still put them in. I'm going to share that survey with everyone, if you don't mind filling it out so that we know what we need to improve on or what we do well. Connie, if you want to reach out to me, I can forward you to Graeme and maybe he can give you a list or something of VPNs that you recommend.
Yeah, sure. I can put together a list of some password managers and some VPN tools that you can share with the attendees after.
Sure, that would be great. I'll send, if you do that, I'll send it out with the video link as well once it's up.
Sure.
Another question, what about social security? I'm not sure.
I'm not old enough for social security. I know the beard looks like it, but I'm not. If you mean social media, again, it's all about the hygiene of your passwords and making sure your passwords are strong, and be wary of friend requests or requests of that nature. If you're not expecting, or it's a really off the wall request, then don't accept it.
Okay. From Caitlin, how far away from the Alexa or Google Home should we be taking a work call?
Honestly, I don't have one, so I haven't tested what the distance is. If it's at all possible, I would not be in the same room as a device.
Okay. I think that's it for questions. Graeme, do you have any last words that you would like to say?
No, just be safe. Keep your wits about you. Don't if something is pulling on your heartstrings or pushing urgency, then take a step back from it and take a closer look, because it may not be legit. Chances are it's not.
Great. Thanks, Graeme. So again, we do have a business continuity workshop on Thursday. You can find all the links to our social media and you will get that survey in your email within the next hour. So thanks everybody for coming in, and thanks Graeme for facilitating.
Thank you for having me. Thanks everybody.